What's up, y'all? It's Spirit C Brown of the video, and this video right here is gonna be part of like a shadow series that I'm doing. What I mean by shadow series is a lot of y'all been asking me, because I always talk about doing like shadow work in my videos, right? So a lot of y'all been asking me, okay, so like what is the shadow? Like how do you do shadow work? So this video right here is gonna be mainly focused on understanding the shadow. All right, so in this video I'm gonna be basically talking to y'all about what the shadow is and how it came to be, and so on and so forth. All right, so make sure you stay tuned for the whole video, and for all my new subscribers, welcome. All right, I'm just here to just basically try to uplift the planet, you know what I'm saying, put out knowledge for my people. All right, so let's get into the video. All right, so first things first, what is the shadow? The shadow is basically the dark side of you and me. All right, you know how like in cartoons and shows they be having like parallel universes with like an evil twin or whatever. The shadow side is you and me, but just in a darker form. All right, so the shadow consists of thought patterns and emotions that are like frowned upon by humanity, right? So that would be jealousy, anger, depression, greed, just anything that is looked at as bad in the third dimension. All right, so yes, we all have a shadow. Like, I don't care if you're like the most spiritual person on this earth and you think that you're the most enlightened person on this earth. Even monks have shadows, bro. Like, we all have that shadow side within us. But what makes you more powerful when it comes to the shadow side is that you're able to learn how to work with it instead of against it or letting it control you. All right, remember I be telling y'all, bro, learning how to control your mind. That goes hand in hand with the shadow too. Because what a lot of people have to understand when it comes to cleansing your shadow and basically doing the shadow work, is that you have to realize that you can't get rid of your shadow. I don't care what you do. You cannot kill your shadow. You cannot get rid of it because it's a part of you. The only way for you to basically to erase your shadow altogether is to get rid of yourself. And that's pointless, bro, because why would you want to kill yourself just because you feel dark? You know what I'm saying? That's just your shadow self. All you have to do is learn how to control it, learn how to work with it. And when you do that, it basically makes you immortal. All right, it makes you way stronger than what you were before. Because what you have to realize is as we're growing up, right, the shadow is looked at as bad. So that it basically separates us. It's basically a separation between our shadow and a false identity of ourselves. Because if you actually look at it, your shadow is basically realer than what you try to portray to other people. You know how people be trying to impress other people, right? Your shadow is way realer than that, because at least your shadow has emotion. At least your shadow has thoughts of its own. So you have to look at your shadow as your parallel brother or your parallel sister. All right, trying to get rid of that brother or that sister is only going to spiral you down a depressing path, bro. Because you have to realize that you can't get rid of it because it's a part of you. All right, and that's gonna come into play when it comes to actually doing shadow work also, which I'm gonna talk about in a separate video in a part 2. All right, but you have to realize that you have to first accept it. That's part of shadow work as well. All right, so how was your shadow born? All right, so where did it all start? All right, so what you have to realize when it comes to your shadow, when we were born, right? When we first came into this world, we were all kind and loving. All right, you could look at a child right now and you could tell that child is loving, right? They'll go to anybody, right? They'll talk to anybody, they'll play with anybody. That's why kids are like a target when it comes to kidnappers, because you can easily lure a kid in, bro. These bugs, man. But you can easily lure a kid in, right? So you have to realize that when we first came out of the womb and we came into this universe, our soul came from source. The source that we came from is revolved around the love frequency, bro. Which is what we all have to learn how to get back to. All right, that love frequency. So when we first came out, we was loving. But as we got older, as we dove deeper into the world, into the matrix, into the programming, right? It kind of set back all that loving, because now you got on TV, you got a bunch of crime, you got a bunch of violence on TV. Now you're being programmed. So when you start to get programmed, now you're a part of the matrix. Now you're falling victim to the matrix, right? And we all know that the matrix is all about governing the way that you think, governing the way that you behave, right? Everybody just wants to control you. And because of that, now other people that's outside of you are going to look at you as, you know what I'm saying, if you don't follow the programming, they're going to look at you a certain way because they're programmed in the matrix. Now, because we're so worried about what people think about us, we can no longer express ourselves. We can no longer express ourselves because we're always chasing a false reality or a false identity. And when you do that, you're no longer living your true self. All right, so now you're struggling. Let me give you an example of what I mean. All right, so when you're a child, right, and you get angry for the first time, you start throwing a temper tantrum, is what they like to call it. When you start throwing a tantrum, your parents are going to automatically punish you or discipline you because your parents don't know how to handle a child that's going through a tantrum. Because you have to realize, bro, our parents haven't done any shadow work within themselves either. So they don't have the knowledge to deal with your temper tantrum because they don't even know how to deal with theirs. All right, so your parents send you to your room, and when you're in your room, or let's say for example your parents take your game or take a toy or whatever, your mind is automatically going to see what you just did as bad. All right, your mind is automatically going to register that situation as, dang, I must have did something wrong. So now you're going to automatically, as a child, you're going to straighten up your act because you don't want your toy getting taken away. You don't want to get sent to your room no more. All right, so let's say for example you go to school the next day, and at school you're being loving, you're being silly, you know what I'm saying, you're playing with your classmates, which is how you express yourself as a child when you're trying to show that you love or that you're happy, right? Okay, so you're doing that, and then all of a sudden your teacher tells you to sit down, right? Or basically they send you to the principal office or whatever. I'm just using this as an example. They send you to the principal office, and your parents get contacted, and the principal's basically saying, oh yeah, so and so is being like real disruptive in class, right? But they say that you're being disruptive, but that's how you're expressing yourselves, right? You don't want to be bad anymore, so your mind says. So now your parents disciplining you for being good. So now that confuses your mind. So your mind is saying, okay, so at home I did something bad and I got sent to my room. At school, I must have did something bad because now my parents is fussing at me and I'm being sent to the principal office. I'm not around my friends no more. This is what your mind is going through as a kid. So over time, your mind is going to get confused. You're going to start registering a bunch of stuff as bad. And because of that, now you're not going to want to be your true self. You're not going to want to express yourself. And all that emotions, all that negative thought, all those negative thought patterns and those negative emotions that I talked about earlier in the video is going to get sent down to your shadow. That is how your shadow is born, bro. Because like society has so many different rules in place to govern how we act, to govern how we think, and to govern how we react to situations, man. So that's how your shadow is born. And another thing to really understand when it comes to the shadow is that all of those negative thought patterns, all those negative emotions that get sent down to your shadow self, if you don't grab a hold of it and control it, all it's going to do is magnify and get bigger. All right, it's going to get stronger, which is why you see people nowadays that, like, you could do the littlest thing to them and then they'll lash out on you. That's because that's their shadow, that's all those negative emotions and negative thought patterns coming out at full force. So now you're lashing at that person, whether it be physical or verbal. You know what I'm saying? It's still a form of shadow. That's because you're not in tune with yourself. That's why now, that's why as you grow in your spiritual journey, you handle situations different. Like, if somebody comes at you sideways, you already know, okay, this person right here is obviously thinking with their ego. So I'm not gonna react to them because they don't even know what they're doing this themselves. All right. So what happens when you ignore your shadow? All right. So this right here is gonna be the last topic. So what happens when you ignore your shadow? Now the ancient Greeks always knew that we all have energy fields inside of us. All right, we all have like a certain energy field, and they always looked at that energy field being a form of God or a form of goddess, right? So within that energy field, but now today we realize that energy field as being like ruled by the planets, governed by the stars, governed by different dimensions or whatever you want to call it. Either way, we all have an energy field that's within us, all right, a power, right? So the ancient Greeks always believed that whatever part of you that you disown is always going to come back at you 10 times stronger. All right, it's familiar to the ego, right? If you don't realize that you have an ego and you don't learn how to control it, it's going to run your life. It's the same thing with your shadow. All those negative emotions are going to come back constantly and run your life. So one thing to fully understand about the shadow is if you're not fully aware and if you're not fully conscious of it, your shadow will control you and run your life, just like your ego will. All right, it's the same thing. Especially if you're unconscious of your own body and what you have within here, it's going to run your life. It's going to take control of you anytime, and you won't be aware of it. All right. Say for example, somebody makes you mad, you punch a wall, right? That's your shadow. That's pent up emotion. That's pent up anger. Somebody says something bad about you, like oh, like I don't like how you look. You automatically get sad. You automatically go into a deep state of depression, and you be thinking about that shit all day, right? All that is a form of your shadow. Remember, I told you your shadow is your negative emotions, your negative thoughts, right? Your negative can be anger, or negative can be sadness. You know what I'm saying? So until you learn how to control your shadow and basically become whole with it again, because you got to realize it's a lot of people walking around right now living a false reality, living a false life, and their shadow, they're not whole with their shadow. You know what I'm saying? You have to become whole with that shit. All right? So if you don't learn how to control your shadow, it will control your life. I'm going to say that again. All right? And in my next video, I'm going to basically be giving y'all the shadow work tips. All right? Basically the ways that you can do shadow work. All right, so with that being said, bro, I hope y'all enjoyed and learned something for this video. This is just me compiling all the information that I've gotten and that I basically learned for myself and putting it in one video. All right, so that's all I have on, like, basically for you to understand the shadow. All right, make sure that y'all continue to take care of yourself. All right, don't focus on anything as far as like out here in the matrix, bro. Continue to do you. All right, continue to love yourself and continue to show love to everyone around you. All right. So with that being said, I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.